B.K. Thapar of the Archaeological Survey of India,
Right.
he, in 1951, the very year that the Somnath Mandir was renewed, had undertaken a very detailed scientific survey.
Right.
And he came to some fascinating conclusions about the Buddhist origins of that place as a site of worship.
So he finds basically three phases, right? The earliest phase is this 10th century temple, which was the original temple built by Mula Raja. It was a huge dampener for people who were very excited about this and were part of the Somnath Trust, etc., because there was a belief that this temple is as old as 1st century AD. And then it was expanded, in 6th century, and then the Arabs, the first Arabs who came over here, they were the ones to first destroy it. So the story, for them went even further. But there was nothing like that found. What's interesting is B.K. Thapar says that under that first phase is clearly another structure, right, that was destroyed and through its remains.
In the same place?
Under the Somnath temple.
Oh, underneath, okay.
Right, under the first phase, which is the primal temple, the foundational temple,
Right.
which was built by Mula Raja, there
It
is
was
clearly
a
something.
Buddhist prayer hall that was destroyed during the rise of Hinduism against the Buddhists after Shankaracharya.
Right.
And what remained was what was discovered by B.K. Thapar.
Yes.
And therefore, it seems that Mularaj had built
On
a
top.
small temple with a small mandap on the ruins of that Buddhist prayer hall.
Right. And you must tell the viewers, Mool Raj was?
He was the king who built, historically,
Yeah.
not in legend,
Yeah, historically.
the first temple, the first Shivaling temple, which was a small temple with a small mandap.
Right.
It was not a grand temple.
Correct. This was again something which was very disappointing for this particular person called K.M. Munshi, who was also one of the founders of the Vishwa Hindu Parishad.
K.M. Munshi
Yes, that's right.
was the one who started the movement in 1947.
Yes.
After Junagadh was joined the Indian Union to rebuild the Somnath Mandir,
Right.
which was in legend a fabulous place, a bit like the Ayodhya movement that we have now
Very,
found.
very similar, yes.
Very similar. And he made a big show of it, but Nehru disapproved.
Yes. So he in fact wrote an entire book called Somanath, the Shrine Eternal, where he narrates the story that, I am narrating, which was very popular then, that, it starts in the 1st century CE, then the Arabs raid it, and then you have Mula Raja's temple. But when the excavation happened, all of this was rubbished. So so what's interesting is Thapar exactly does not say it's a Buddhist temple. What's fascinating is he says there's something, but there are English surveyors at that point in time, especially Poston, who in his 1838 essay says that this looks like, this structure which is clearly underneath the first one, looks like, Buddhist remains. And then we had a survey done by IIT Gandhinagar very recently in 2020. It's a GPR survey, what is called as ground penetrating radar.
That means ground
Penetrating
radar.
Radar,
Ground
yes.
penetrating
Yes,
radar, GPR.
Right. It's a very famous thing even now.
Yes.
So, this whole idea that there is a temple underneath the mosque, they'll do a GPR. Although GPR survey is not supposed to tell you what kind of a structure it is.
Yeah.
It's only supposed to tell you at what depth the structure is and, how big the structure is or something
It
like
doesn't show photographs. It's not like an X-ray.
It's not like
Right.
you
So you-
cannot say if it's a temple or
You
if it's
just
a
know there is something.
You know if there is a structure, yes. So they did a GPR survey, and it's fascinating that they found from the Digvijay Dwar of the Somanath temple all the way to where the Statue of Unity is, a set of 3 Buddhist caves, these Mahaviharas. So it's very clear now that there was, and it's fascinating that the report of the IIT Gandhinagar is no longer publicly available.
When were these 3 caves discovered? Now, recently, when the
2020
statue was
GPR
being built.
2020 GPR survey.
2020.
6 years.
IIT Gandhinagar survey.
Right.
And this report is not openly available anymore. There are now only news reports.
Oh,
which
they're
were
hiding this.
clearly.
Shocking.
They are putting a cover on this. Because the report, like I said, is not widely talked about. It should be talked about because it's such a discovery, right?
Yeah.
And secondly, they are also not, there are only news reports available, and very few news reports available, which only just state that, these were these set of these 3 caves. I mean, one would, somebody like me who's really interested in all of this would like to read the whole report. But if you know anything about surveys in India or the history of ASI, you'd see reports go missing very, one of the most famous reports, by the way, that has gone missing, and we've never been able to read is Bibi Lal's report on the Babri Masjid excavation that he did before the Babri Masjid was illegally demolished. And it's a very controversial report. I mean, there's no published report, but there's a small video of it where he says that look at these pillars, they look like temple pillars, etc. And everybody's like, okay, he'll probably come out with a report, but there was never a report published on it.
So it was used to distort the story.
And also to build a narrative.
But not to allow historians like Ruchika to examine the report. That is where distortions begin.
Right.
By suppressing the evidence and falsely creating non-evidence as evidence.
Bibi Lal was also a huge supporter of the RSS and VHP, so there should be no mistake about his leanings. But this has happened a lot. Reports will go missing when it's convenient for them to go missing in the ASI. So coming back to this particular thing, there is clearly now evidence that there are Buddhist remains under.
So now we know that what Mahmud attacked was a Shiv temple. There's no doubt on that score.
100%.
But with whom did he attack it? He was, of course, a Muslim iconoclast.
Right.
And loved to portray himself as such. But his general
Tilak.
was a Hindu
Right.
called Tilak. And 4 of his generals below Tilak were Hindus.
Correct.
And of course, the hundreds of Jawans he had were all Hindus.
Correct.
So, in fact, to the extent that the Shivaling temple was damaged or wrecked, whatever the story may be, it was largely Hindu hands, even if there was a Muslim mind behind it.
Yeah, but he's just like Supari, no? It's the person who plans the murder, who's the culprit, the prime culprit, if you like, and those who execute it are just accomplices in a way. So it's the same thing.
But still, I'm only trying to underline that it was not an invading army of Muslims from Afghanistan, but a locally recruited army.
But led by, that is the...
Certainly, I said that.
Led by the invader.
It was led, I said it had a Muslim mind behind it.
I don't think that's a big point, because that's always the case, whether it's today or centuries ago.
So to talk about Tilak, he's a very interesting character because he starts off his journey as an interpreter. He's somebody who knows what is called as Hindi at that point in time, which is not the Hindi that we speak today. It's basically whatever local language is spoken in this particular area. He knows that, he knows Turki, and he also knows Persian. Right? So he's an interpreter with Mahmud, and then of course he clearly proves his worth. Al-Biruni calls him the son of Jaisin, and clearly Jaisin also probably worked with Mahmud, so this is how Tilak also gets to know him. And then he gets to lead this group of corps, which also is a part of, as Mani sir said, is a part of Mahmud's raiding army on Somnath called the Salare Gulama, which basically means the corps of the slaves. Right? So he leads that as well. So Tilak is a very interesting thing. But more than that, it's very interesting to see the way we look at Hindu and Muslim today. At that point in time, that is not the case. So if you look at Mahmud's coin, for example, on one side is the kalma, which says La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, which is also called as the double kalma or double shahada, because usually the kalma just means La ilaha illallah. But when you say Muhammadur Rasulullah, that's considered double shahada. On the obverse is a very fascinating thing. It's the Sanskrit translation of the kalma, which says Avyaktam Ekam, which means Avyak means somebody who is formless. So, which is clearly a reference to Allah, the formless God in Islam. Avyaktam Ekam, which means there is only one God, right? Avatara Muhammada. It's fascinating that they think of Muhammad as an avatar.
They use that term. I never knew that.
Because there's no idea of a prophet in, the Brahmanical religion, right? Avyaktam Ekam Avatara Muhammada Nripati Mahmuda, which means the ruler is Mahmud. Right? So Nripati is a Sanskrit word for ruler.